morning. Butterflies have to have a certain temperature and sunlight to be able to use their wings, and their butterfly blood gets moving in their body and all, and then they can fly away and nectar on something. And here's the chrysalis. And when a caterpillar, a lot of them, when they're ready to make the chrysalis, they stop eating. They might leave their host plant. It's called a host plant. And wander around and find a safe place. This one chose a frog in somebody's garden. And unless something comes along and disturbs it, or maybe a stink bug, other predators, a lot of predators, insect predators that will eat caterpillars and chrysalis and cocoons. A lot of birds will bother it, but again, the chrysalis, they won't bother the chrysalis again, because it also tastes bad. The butterfly tastes bad. All stages of a monarch taste bad. Just because I just learned this year, I did not know that I could look at a chrysalis and tell whether it's going to be a male or a female. And at the top of the chrysalis, if there's a little line like this, it's going to be a female. I did not know that. I learned that from the internet and from Facebook. And I also kind of knew this, that if you look at a chrysalis, not just monarch, any of them, if you look at it closely, you can see the parts of the butterfly even from the outside. You can see where the wings are, where the legs are, where the antennae are. You can see all those things just by looking at the outside of the chrysalis. Now, after a certain number of days, the chrysalis is no longer green. It becomes transparent after a while. And when it is totally transparent, that is its birthday. That is the day it will eclose. Emerge is one way, but eclose, E-C-L-O-S-E, is when a butterfly or moth breaks out of its cocoon or its chrysalis. It's called eclosing. That's a new word for you, I bet. There again, this one's about ready. It still has color. It's not quite ready to eclose, but it's going to. And it's a beautiful little thing. If you find a chrysalis, leave it alone. But it is an amazing little miracle that a chrysalis and cocoons both. I only showed this picture to show those little spots again. This is an adult butterfly's abdomen, and those little spots are the spiracles that it's breathing through. I had to include this. Okay, I had to include it. I'm just sorry, but that's an old photo. Now, after the emergence or eclosing, then those all butterflies have to go to nectaring. Nectaring is a verb, to nectar. And that just means to go from flower to flower, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be milkweed anymore, and get some nice, native, rich nectar to fatten itself up. If it's going to be the ones that are going to migrate to Mexico, which these butterflies do in the fall, then the butterfly has to get pretty fat. And you wouldn't think about a fat butterfly. But if there are not enough nectaring plants in your gardens or on their flyway flying to Mexico, they will not make it, or they will starve over the winter when they're there because they don't have enough nutrient. So even if you don't have milkweed, if you have rich nectaring plants, native plants, and in Virginia, in the fall, when the monarchs are going to migrate, Joe pineweed, goldenrod, mountain mint is a good one to have for other pollinators. the fall plants that you would have, bone set, they would be the ones that you need to have available, because fall is when they are going to begin their migration to Mexico. 75 miles northwest of Mexico City is where the mountains, where they're heading. And this one with lots of goldenrod's a good nectaring plant. And look at how many are on this sunflower. Now there's a male. I see a male, and I can tell it's a male. It has little black dots on its wings. That's a male monarch. Now these guys are probably, and gals, are probably in a group like that. They're probably gathering to begin migration. Now, I think you might know that if these are going to Mexico, it was their great-great-grandparents that are the ones that were in Mexico before. These have never been to Mexico, and by instinct, monarch butterflies know where to go and when to go. It is not that they have ever been there before. Now, it's February, and this is mating time in Mexico. Now, there's a 90% decrease in the numbers of monarchs that are overwintering in Mexico right now. 90% decrease. There are 5 overwintering reserves, sanctuaries in those mountains, and only one of them is being used well right now. That's because of this huge decrease in the numbers. And this chart right here, right now in February is when the monarchs are mating in Mexico. They have all for 5 months now, they have been hanging on in a kind of a dormant state. They have been hanging, piled upon each other, on oyamel fir trees in these mountains 10,000 feet up high in Mexico. And they don't go out and nectar every day or anything. They're in kind of a torpor or a dormant state. And the only reason they leave their trees when they need water, because they must find water, and they're in streams, and they'll be on the ground getting water so they can metabolize the food for fat. Migration is a big map over on the stage, but migration would be in the fall. By November, first week in November, they should be in Mexico. And when they get there, the natives there have a big celebration when the monarchs appear. And they will go all the way a little farther. When they first come from Mexico, they will go to Texas, the females. I have to say this. After they mate, the males will die and are in heaps on the ground in Mexico. The females will fly to Texas, Louisiana, and they will lay their first generation. Okay? And they will then die. First generation matures, but metamorphosis goes off and they will fly a little farther north. Next generation, a little farther north. They may go as far as into Canada. Because there's milkweed in Canada. As long as there's milkweed, they can breed and survive. These are the mountains they're going to in Mexico. I went about 15 years ago and took a few of these pictures. Now, if the lights were out, you could see that these trees look like they're on fire. You can't see that very well, but there's orange. All through here, it looks orange. If the lights were out, you'd be able to see the orange. That's monarchs. That's the millions of monarchs on those trees. And when they're going and coming, this is what the sky would look like. When they're hanging on the oyamel trees, they are in huge layers. And all those clumps that look like beehives, those are all masses of monarchs. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, piled on top of each other. The oyamel trees are very tall and they act like an umbrella and protect the monarchs. These children are Mexican children coming from school, and they are watching monarchs that are getting water. All these are monarchs that are getting some water to metabolize their food. But and they're fat, because they're not eating when they're down there. They don't need to. They're living off of their fat. These children are also looking to see if they happen to see a monarch that has a tag on it. And over on the table, you'll see, over on my table over there, you'll see a tagged monarch. There are thousands and thousands that are tagged every year by school children and adults. And they are helping the scientists keep track of migration. And if these children happen to find one, a tourist or a scientist down there will pay them $5 if they find a tag. That $5 is like $100. They're very, very in need there. Now, if somebody ever told you that you cannot hear the wings of a butterfly, they're wrong. Because if you're standing like this, then you can hear the wings. Now, after they are aster, New England aster is another nectaring plant, native nectaring plant that we have a lot of, and we should need more. That's the kind of plant to have growing here in the fall. And they love zinnias. Now, there are lots of predators. There's lots of danger out there. Not just spiders. This is a garden spider. And praying mantises, stink bugs, all kinds of things like that. They get diseases and parasites, just like we do. They are having problems finding, since there's so many invasive plants these days, and so many people that are keeping their lawns manicured with invasive grasses and non-native things, they are not finding the milkweed they need to breed. And we all know that the highway department cuts down lots of plants along the roadsides, and up on the Parkway and the Skyline Drive, just in the last year did I see a change. But before that, you go along and there might be a field of milkweed with caterpillars on them, and that's when it's chosen to cut the field. Now, a lot of that's changing. There's starting last year in Virginia Department of Transportation has been urged and encouraged, and there'll probably even be a law soon, that they start helping out the pollinators, not just monarchs, by doing less of mowing at the wrong times, less mowing far from the roads, and there's an encouragement that native plants and milkweed be planted along utility